And now, the Rink Rap Podcast from Forever Blueshirts, talking all things New York Rangers hockey. Here's your host, Jim Cerny.
Rangers faithful, welcome to another edition of the Rink Rap Podcast here at Forever Blueshirts. I'm your host, Jim Cerny. Thanks for tuning in. Happy holidays to, of course, those celebrating right now. Happy Hanukkah, and less than a week out from Christmas for those celebrating there. And of course, Kwanzaa coming up. And after that, after the holidays, we get a 3-day NHL holiday break. We head towards, go careening towards the new year, 2026, of course, which opens up with the Winter Classic down in Florida, down in Miami for the Rangers as they take on the two-time defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. We'll get into a real deep dive with that next week. But right now, there's still so much more to do. Tell the truth. Did you finish your holiday shopping yet? Come on, be honest. There's no excuse. But I know some of you are waiting. You're still waiting. There's, what do they call it? Super Saturday, or I don't know, whatever it is, the final Saturday before Christmas. It's supposed to be, mad rush of, the customers out there shopping, getting the last minute deals and all that sort of thing. But there's no excuse for that anymore, right? Come on. Online shopping, Amazon, not to throw them a free plug. They don't need it. But, there's no excuse not to get this stuff done. Oh, I'm busy. I got work. Or, like for me, I work in hockey. Oh, the Rangers are playing 7 games in 11 days. How am I going to get my holiday shopping done? There's no excuse. You don't have to run out to the mall, or you don't have to do all your shopping at the mall, or head into Manhattan to, head to the big department stores or whatever the case might be. Right? Shouldn't be that difficult. No excuses. Or so I'm told. Hopefully I got all my ducks in a row when it comes to the shopping. But, that's probably taken up a lot of your time. But I bet your focus has really been lasered in on the Rangers too. Because you talk about storylines this past week, or certainly since our last podcast, which was last Friday, when EJ Raddick joined us on the show. So much has happened, right? Bookended by a pair of JT Miller overtime game-winning goals, games in which the Rangers rallied once at home to beat the Canadiens 5-4. JT with a howitzer winning that one. Scored the tying goal. Scored the tying goal in that one. And then, of course, most recently, Thursday night in St. Louis, against not a good team, the Rangers fell behind 1-0. It was a low event game. Two teams that just struggle like hell to score goals anyway. Two of the worst scoring teams in the league. St. Louis is number 2, worst overall. Rangers are fourth worst when it comes to putting the puck in the net so far this season. So it was no surprise that this one was 1-1 after 60 minutes. And, listen, Jordan Binnington, Igor Shesterkin, they had to make some big saves along the way, but low event, non-exciting hockey. Get used to it. That's the New York Rangers right now. And it's the St. Louis Blues right now. But again, the wind-up being JT Miller, another game-winning overtime goal. So that kind of bookends the week, and then in between, it's like mayhem, right? You got Chris Kreider and Jacob Trouba made their first returns to Madison Square Garden since Rangers traded them away in separate deals over the last year. They return on Monday with the Anaheim Ducks. Rangers lose a pair of tough, bad offensive showings against Anaheim and Vancouver back-to-back nights. They lose that back-to-back on home ice. So their woes continue at the Garden. Mika Zibanejad misses a meeting, is scratched for the game Monday, doesn't play against his BFF, Chris Kreider. Let's see. What else we got? Oh, yeah, Artemi Panarin. He's under the weather. He's not in the lineup Thursday in St. Louis. So the Rangers play one game without one of their leading goal scorers this year, Mika, who's got 11 goals. Then Panarin, who's got 11 goals as well and leads the team in overall scoring. He doesn't play on Thursday, so you're doing without them. Oh, yeah, Adam Fox is also remains out of the lineup. Though, hey, here's the good news. He's wearing the no contact jersey, skating with his teammates, took part in the morning skate in St. Louis. So once his term is up, his time is up on LTIR, looks like he could be, at least from outside. Nobody from the Rangers has said this. From the outside looking in, it appears that Adam Fox is close to a return. But hey, there's Adam Fox news as well. And the kids are here. Gabe Perreault gets called up, scores his first NHL goal. I think 30 years from now, 40 years from now, he'll be telling his children and grandchildren that it was a wicked night. And he beat Jordan Binnington, a Stanley Cup winning goalie, Four Nations champion Jordan Binnington. He beat him with this amazing goal and everything. And instead, we know the truth. He did the right thing. He skated right down the middle, skated between the circles, went hard to the net, tied up a defenseman, and Will Cooley shot, took a shot from left wing. Puck hits Perreault in the skate, goes under the pad of Binnington. He's got his first NHL goal. So listen, doesn't matter how you get it, but he's got it. So that's part of our big news as well this week. Brennan Othmann also up. We get the dual call up, Gabe Perreault and Brennan Othmann coming up. So yeah, just a lot of storylines for the Rangers week. A lot to occupy your headspace, right? Along with getting your holiday shopping done. Or if you're celebrating Hanukkah, hopefully your shopping is done and you're doling out the gifts and receiving the gifts this week as well. So anyway, a lot going on, right? The thing that I want to start with, and it's really tough where to start here because there's so much going on. But I listed all the big things that happened this week, and I'm just going to bang through them here in the first segment, and then in the second segment, I want to get to a bigger topic. Story I wrote about this week, comments from EJ Raddick last week kind of spurred my thought process, and the reaction of the fans to the story that I wrote. We'll get to that in the second segment. But let's run it down this week. Let's start on the positive, right? Good on JT Miller. He's only got 10 goals this season, and 17 points. I think it's 17 points in 34, 35 games that he's played this season. At 5-on-5, he only has 17 points. But JT Miller is clutch, right? JT Miller is clutch. And it's not just now. Sure, we focus on the here and now because he's got 3 overtime winning goals this season, including 2 in a week. He also assisted on Will Cooley's overtime winner in Seattle. You might have forgotten that. And he has a shootout game winner in Columbus. So the Rangers have won 6 times. They're credited with 6 overtime victories, 5 in the 3-on-3 portion and 1 in a shootout. They're 1-0 in the shootout, 5-4 in 3-on-3 play. So that's 6 wins in overtime. He's got a direct hand in 5 of those 6 wins. You talk about Captain Clutch. Good on JT Miller. I know he's struggled 5-on-5 to score goals. I know he's struggled with his consistency putting the puck in the net. He's got 10 goals overall on the season, but 3 goals in overtime, 1 assist in overtime, and then, of course, the shootout winner as well. He has been Captain Clutch. And those last 2 overtime goals, one was on the right circle, one was a little bit more to the inner part of the left circle or to the right side of the left circle. But on the opposite side, Miller howitzers. He unloaded missiles to score those game-winning goals. The one was on the power play, 4-on-3 power play against Montreal. And then 3-on-3, the more conventional overtime winner. Howitzers. Mike Sullivan's like, yeah, man, that's what I was talking to him about Thursday morning after the skate. Shoot the puck more. Lean into that shot. There aren't many guys, and this is Sully saying this, but I agree. There aren't many guys that without fancy moves and everything can just absolutely beat the best goaltenders in the game because they have such a heavy, hard, direct shot. JT Miller is one of those guys. And that's what Mike Sullivan pointed out. he wants to see more of. But when the ice opens up, and again, listen, JT Miller, yeah, he grinds, he gets below the dots, he wins puck battles, he goes hard to the net, he gets a lot of goals from in tight, greasy goals. That's basically how he scores 5-on-5. But when there's more open ice, he tends to find the sweet spot, gets open, and buries it. Buries it with missiles. That's what he did against Montreal. That's what he did against St. Louis. Did you know this fact? You did, if you read our stories on Forever Blue Shirts today. Do you know that JT Miller has scored more overtime goals than any other United States-born player in National Hockey League history? That was his 17th overtime goal in his NHL career in St. Louis on Thursday night. That's pretty cool, right? He passed Max Pacioretty as the most prolific, if you will, overtime goal scorer for a United States-born player in NHL history. He's tied for 7th overall. Alex Ovechkin is way ahead of him. Alex Ovechkin has 27 overtime goals in his career. So, considering age and the fact that the Ovi's still playing as well, JT's probably not going to catch him. That's still pretty cool company that he's a part of. So anyway, Captain Clutch gets it done Saturday, gets it done Thursday. Let's see what he's got in his wheelhouse this weekend. Rangers got a couple more games this weekend, 3 more games before the holiday break. And they seem to go overtime more often than not these days. 10 of their 36 games this season now decided in overtime. And that's a trend in the NHL, along with parity, along with basically nobody being out of a playoff position. 32 teams still in it almost halfway through the season. The other thing that's consistent with that is just a ton, a historic amount of overtime games in the NHL, and the Rangers certainly are in the mix of that. And we'll touch on that in our second segment as well. So there's that. So he stepped up in a week when you can argue that the Rangers didn't get enough from Mika Zibanejad. Okay. So Mika, late to a meeting on Monday, Mike Sullivan scratches him. So he doesn't play. He didn't miss a lot of games, this guy. He's a very durable guy. Mika misses the game, accepts his punishment, says all the right things. He explains there was a car accident. He lives in Manhattan. The meeting's in Westchester at the Rangers training facility. He got stuck. There was an accident. He didn't allow himself enough time for such a possibility. He was late. He missed the meeting. Rules are rules. That's what Mike Sullivan said. And Mika Zibanejad, at least publicly, supported his coach there. But then I expected him to come out with fire on Tuesday. Rangers lost to the Ducks 4-1. Mika doesn't play in that game. I thought he would come out with his pants on fire on Tuesday night against, again, not a very good Vancouver Canucks team. And it was just a middling effort. We haven't seen that a lot from Mika this year. I've really lauded this guy. And I took some heat. There's some Mika lovers out there. And I don't say that sarcastically, but supporters of Mika Zibanejad, that's probably a better way to put it, who say that I'm always too harsh on him. Mopey Mika, I called him last season. If you listen to the podcast and you read the articles at Forever Blue Shirts, you know that I am really impressed with Mika this year. I think he has set a positive tone. I think he's been a good leader. There's been none of that Mopey Mika stuff. He's worked his butt off. He's played a 200-foot game to the best of his ability, I think, on most nights. Now, the puck hasn't gone in a lot for him. I know he's tied for the team lead with 11 goals, but maybe that's just who he is now at age 32. But I think his effort's been really good this year. And by nothing Mike Sullivan said, nor by the explanation of Mika Zibanejad, do I believe that we have a recurring problem here with Mika. I don't think he's a problem. Oh, he misses meetings. He's a bad leader. He's bad in the room, setting a terrible example. Everything I know about Mika Zibanejad, everything I hear about Mika Zibanejad from those who know, nothing but positive. This season. Last season, we've been down that road, and certainly I've analyzed that, discussed that, ad nauseum. But that's in the past. To his credit, he's bounced back this season, um, and he's been a different guy, I think. Okay, but I expected pants on fire Tuesday. You can't always, predict an outcome. Oh, he scratched last night, and so he's going to score a hat trick, because he wants to prove himself, to his teammates. He let them down, and he's going to come back the next night, and the fans are going to love him, and it's going to be a great, that's great. That's Hollywood. But you can't predict that stuff. But I expected him to be some kind of difference maker. I really, really come out flying, and I didn't see that out of him on Tuesday. And, he was okay Thursday, right? Here now Artemi Panarin was out of the lineup, another guy who never misses time. He's like Mika. He is durable. He's out there all the time. Say what you will about both those guys. They're both a little bit older. Mika's 32, Panarin's 34. They don't miss games. But Panarin did miss the game in St. Louis under the weather. Per the Rangers, so assuming some sort of illness or flu or whatever, some virus. So, okay. Again, I expected more out of Mika. And it just seemed like, I don't know. It wasn't bad. Not saying his effort wasn't good. Just was, I don't know. Expected more. In those circumstances. And I thought you certainly got more out of Miller, right? With the game winner. You expect all your best players more. Adam Fox out of the lineup. Okay, Vladislav Gavrikov, Braden Schneider, rest of the defense. We need more. Panarin's out of the lineup. Hey, Mika, we need more. Not sure we saw that. In any case. So there's that. So that you had Mika's week. You had the back-to-back losses. Rangers scored 1 goal. It's a typical crap at Madison Square Garden, right? With their, their home woes. They've been shut out 6 times in 17 games on Madison Square Garden ice. That's ridiculous. And the teams that they losing to Vancouver, it's the 3rd time this season that they've lost to the team that was currently last overall in the NHL when they played them. Ugh. And then, Vancouver just made the big trade, though. Listen, so far the trade looks pretty good for them. Made by everyone's accounts, people in the know, people that have gone on the record to talk about this, NHL people give credit to Vancouver for the return they got by trading Quinn Hughes to the Minnesota Wild. That was one of those, it looks like win-win hockey trades. That's good for each side. But in any case, Vancouver's not very good. The Rangers, where was the desperation? I didn't see them dictate that game. Were they? Did I think they were the better team? As they have been in a bunch of these, home losses this season. Yeah. I think they were for stretches. And for the majority of the game. They were better than Vancouver. They don't finish. That's who they are. Even St. Louis, wasn't a great game. And against another mediocre opponent. Not only a mediocre opponent, but a mediocre opponent with a team decimated by injuries to key players. And yet there they were. There were the Blues, scored kind of a freaky first goal, after a very rare Igor Shesterkin bad breakout pass led to a turnover in their own zone, 3-on-1 down low, and then just a perfect shot by Berggren. Maybe Igor should have been standing up, not kind of crouched down on the shot. He got beat up over the shoulder. Okay. Great shot. Bad turnover. But, St. Louis Blues, Rangers generated so little 5-on-5 against such a mediocre team. A team with the worst goal differential in the NHL. So not only does St. Louis not score a lot of goals, they give them up. And Jordan Binnington, he's got the track record, but Jordan Binnington has not been Jordan Binnington this season, right? He hasn't been really good, especially as of late. But he came up big, especially power play. Rangers did have some really good power play looks. And, Binnington was at his best during those times. Which leads us to, hey, the kids were up. Gabe Perreault, Brennan Othmann, I'm all for it. And, I wrote the column right after the announcement was made that they were being recalled from Hartford. All for having them up here. I would prefer, yes, to see at least Perreault in a top 6 spot, especially with Panarin out of the lineup. But, I get it. I know why Mike Sullivan likes Connor Sheary, JT Miller, and Vincent Trocheck on a line together. They think similarly. They're all tough guys, grinding type guys with skill. Certainly Trocheck and Miller. Sheary's, more of just a grinder. 1 goal this season. I don't know. Wouldn't that be a good spot to put Gabe Perreault on though? I know he's not as strong physically. He's not in his man's body yet at age 20. Still needs to fill out, get stronger. But he was below the dots playing on the third line with Noah Laba on Thursday. He went to the net. He's looking to go to the dirty areas to score goals, and he did. Having the deflection going off his skate. I just like to see him in a top 6 role. Now, the heart of why he's not in the top 6, he was in that 3-game call up earlier this season. He saw top 6 time. The reason he's not is because Mike Sullivan doesn't trust him on the defensive side of the puck. And until Gabe earns that trust, until Gabe shows that he's physically capable of holding up against other teams' best players, men against boy, right? Physically, even though he thinks the game on an elite level and has the skill of an elite player, he physically is still in his boy's body or, teenage body, age 20 body. He still needs to fill out, get stronger. And Mike Sullivan's not comfortable with that. Doesn't think it aids him in the defensive part of the game, which is the area that he thinks Gabe Perreault struggles the most in. But he doesn't trust Brennan Othmann either, right? And you can argue, hey, maybe these kids haven't earned the trust. And, Sully could break down the video and say, well, here's the video of these games. Here's why Gabe Perreault's on the third line. Here's why Brennan Othmann is on the fourth line, which is where he was against St. Louis. We're giving them their shot. Now they got to earn the trust. Not just going to hand them the top 6 role. I'm more comfortable having Connor Sheary. He's not going to score. He could have opened the scoring in the first minute of the game in St. Louis. He had a prime chance. It's not his DNA anymore. It's not who he is at age 33. But I know he's going to work his ass off. I know he's going to play a 200-foot game. I know he's responsible defensively. That's what Sully's comfortable with right now with Connor Sheary. That's why the kids aren't further up in the lineup. But that said, if you're Gabe Perreault or Brennan Othmann, it's another opportunity. You're in the NHL. And the metrics weren't great for Perreault. No, the line with Perreault, Laba, and Taylor Radish. But I'd like to see more of it. You could see the kids. There's a little something there, little chemistry with Noah Laba and Gabe Perreault. And that could be a big picture thing. That may not just be a short-term thing. This might be a bigger picture thing. Remember, they played together, rookie tournament, preseason. Be interesting to see how that develops. I liked what I saw out of them. And of course, they teamed up. Laba picked up the secondary assist with the neat pass entry into the offensive zone, setting up Perreault's power play goal. So the second power play unit scores there. So we'll see. I still would like to see Gabe Perreault in the top 6, though. Not going to lie. But listen, Sully's call. We'll see. They win or they won on Tuesday with that lineup. I'd assume that they'll come out the same way against the Flyers on Saturday. Brennan Othmann. Listen, that fourth line, they didn't get a lot of run. Not a lot of offensive opportunities. Othmann did have one great opportunity, about 90 seconds, about a minute and a half after Perreault scored his first NHL goal, Othmann's all alone in front, with an even strength opportunity, and Jordan Binnington stoned him. So we almost had the 2 first-round picks, Othmann from 21 and Perreault, of course, from 23. Almost had them go back-to-back with their first NHL goals. That would have been pretty cool. But we didn't get it. Othmann now, 26, 27 games into his NHL career, spanned over 3 seasons. Still looking for that first NHL goal. But didn't, outside of the offensive zone penalty, and I'm not downplaying that, outside of that, there was still nothing egregiously bad out of Othmann's game. Again, I like to see him on the third line. I like to see him with Laba and Radish, let's say, or him and Laba and Sherry on the third line instead of the fourth line. But I can see providing energy if he just sticks to his physical game, uses his big body, gets to the net. Yeah, but he and Rempe on the wings, Sam Carrick, who's always grinding in the middle. I could see that being an energy type line. But I think there's more to Brennan Othmann's game than just that. But it's got to earn the trust. And I think more so, he needs to prove many things to Coach Mike Sullivan than Gabe Perreault does. But they both do. As does Scott Morrow. We've seen, but listen, they've pretty much had the kid gloves on Scott Morrow, even with Adam Fox out of the lineup. Morrow finally got to run power play 1 in St. Louis. I thought he did a really good job. He got more power play time than anybody, more than Mika, more than JT Miller, more than Vincent Trocheck. He was out there the longest on the Rangers power play opportunities. He had one cannon of a shot that got through. I thought he distributes the puck well, though. Still seemed like, Mika had that puck as much, if not more, than Scott Morrow, which, listen, that's not a bad thing. But in any case, just reverting back to the coach, doesn't quite have that confidence in Morrow yet either. So it's up to the kids. If this is the way it's going to be, hey, that's not bad. Earn your minutes, earn your opportunities, earn your way up the lineup. Scott Morrow, I think, gained a little bit of trust. And, listen, plus the 5-forward look wasn't exactly going well on the power play for the Rangers. Then Panarin is sick, is out of the lineup. So Morrow was the logical fit to step in there. But I think he's earned a little bit of trust from the coach. I think he's played reasonably well defensively. I don't think he's been a problem out there. So he gets his look. He gets an opportunity. Gabe Perreault gets a look, gets his opportunity. Brennan Othmann, less of an opportunity, but he's here. He's here. He's in front of this coaching staff. Make the most of it. Wherever they put you, whatever the role is, whatever your minutes are, make the most of it. Force your way in. Kick down the door. That's where right now Brennan Othmann really is, but it also applies to Scott Morrow and Gabe Perreault as well. All right, listen, when we return, we'll have more Rink Rap podcast here, and we'll get to why the Rangers, saying the word Rangers or saying the words Rangers and playoffs in the same sentence doesn't have to have negative connotations. I'll explain why when we return. This is Rink Rap at Forever Blueshirts. Welcome back to the Rink Rap podcast here at Forever Blueshirts. I am Jim Cerny. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and whatever your favorite audio outlet is for your podcasts. Make sure to like and subscribe and catch us at least once a week. Last week, we had a couple shows last week, but at least once a week. And we're going to try and duck one in during the holiday week. It's going to be a little bit tough next week, but we're going to do our best to get a holiday edition of the Rink Rap podcast in as well. And of course, carry that into the new year, Winter Classic and all that coming up ahead. And also make sure to visit us on our website at foreverblueshirts.com and follow us on X at four fingers, Blueshirts.com, or follow me at Jim Cerny. Okay. So I'm going to get to my bigger topic in 1 second. Fans have been asking, for all of us in the media, but I've gotten a bunch of notifications on X. Say, where do you stand? Was Mike Sullivan right to bench Mika Zibanejad because he was late for a meeting. Unless this is a chronic problem, why is he doing this? Why is he harming the team? So I get the argument. Rangers are in a spot. They can't afford to have a key guy out of the lineup, right? But Mike Sullivan did something that Ranger fans have complained about for years. Where's the accountability? You gotta hold everybody accountable. It cannot just be, "Oh, I'm gonna hold Urho Vakanainen accountable. Yeah, he's our sixth, seventh defenseman. And if he makes a mistake or doesn't play well or whatever the case might be, I'm gonna bench him. He's gonna be in the press box." No, it's got to be throughout the entire lineup. And I get it. Your best players, yeah, they give you more reason to keep them in the lineup, right? Not to be examples to be made up. But this was an off ice thing. This is a team rule. This is something that clearly Mike Sullivan has established. Mika Zibanejad is an alternate captain, leader of this team, has been for years. Not only one of their best players, but a leader, in that locker room. He missed the team meeting. Rules are rules. I know that there's a reason for him missing the meeting. I know that there was an accident, as Mika explained it. He wasn't involved in it, but he was driving and he was behind this accident. Was Mike Sullivan justified? I think he was in doing this. I think in the big picture, you got to look past the one game and you move on. And it sends a message throughout the room. Hey, this is a rule. You, Gabe Perreault, is a rookie. You, JT Miller, is captain. We're all the same here. Now, if he didn't scratch Mika Zibanejad on Monday for missing that team meeting, I wouldn't have been up in arms about it. He probably would have been fined or something of that nature. I would have been okay with that too, because of the reason why he missed the meeting. So I'm kind of giving you two answers here. I would have been good with it either way. I don't think it should have been sloughed off. Mike Sullivan's a very direct guy, right? And he's a communicator. So he and Mika, they got on the same page. They met man to man. Boom, over. And there's no carryover. And Sully said all the right things about Mika Zibanejad, about what a good person, about what a good leader, what a good human being he is. But the but was, hey, rules are rules. There's not a lot of room for flexibility there. But Sully might have felt that I'm still in my first half season as coach of the Rangers here. In a way, it's an opportunity to reinforce his message. So I don't have a problem with it. I know a lot of fans were up in arms. It's going to cost us 2 points. We can't afford to lose 2 points in the standings. It shouldn't be about that. Again, I could make the argument that, hey, just fine him. It wasn't his fault, really. I would have been fine with that. But that's not the case. This is the route they went. I thought it was fine. Okay. So got that out of the way. We talked about the kids, where I disagree with the coach a little bit about, who's playing where, but okay, they're here. Let them earn their opportunity. Let's see how that goes. Here's the bigger picture. The other day, wrote a column that the Rangers have as good a chance as anyone in the Eastern Conference to finish in the top 8 and get back into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And something EJ Raddick said last week when he was on the show, NHL Network host, I asked him, I said, what's the Rangers' path to the playoffs? And he said, it's as good as anyone, because they have great coach. They have really bought into his defensive structure, where, it's a team-wide commitment, not just defensemen, but it's forwards, defensemen, 5-man units, to being a much better defensive team. Much more committed defensive team, playing a 200-foot game. So I got that. And you got Igor Shesterkin and Jonathan Quick in goal. He said that's their path to the playoffs. They're not going to win shootouts. They're going to play a bunch of tight games, but they're good at it. But they're a flawed team. They're what, 4-10-1 on home ice. I mean, they're terrible at home. They fourth, we touched on it earlier. They've scored the fourth fewest goals in the NHL. Even yesterday, a game that they win in St. Louis, they only scored twice, and one of those goals was in overtime. None of the goals weren't 5-on-5. They didn't get a lot 5-on-5. They don't get a lot 5-on-5 typically. So these are things that they have to overcome. They still got to get better at. JT Miller's got to be more consistent offensively. So does Mika. They got to produce more. Alexei Lafreniere, he needs to score. He's got 7 goals this season. The analytics look great, but the actual stats, the actual putting the puck in the net, not so much. They need more. Gabe Perreault's here. They need him to produce. Got the goal Thursday? Great. They need him to keep producing. Artemi Panarin's been a point-a-game player, but streaky. In almost half the games he's played this season, he's been held off the score sheet. He's a point-per-game player because he's got, 3 4-point games this season? Another 3-point game or two? He when he rolls, and he stacks up those points, and he has these, game-breaking games, breakouts. But the consistency, they need consistency. They need their best players to produce more. So that makes them a flawed team because it hasn't been that way for half the season. They don't win at Madison Square Garden consistently. In fact, they lose much more often than not. These are issues for the New York Rangers. So things to overcome. But who scares you in the Eastern Conference? Yeah, the Rangers are right there. Look at the points. They're a point out of the playoffs right now, out of the final playoff spot in the East. Now, granted, they played more games than everyone in the conference. Some teams have played 3 fewer games than the Rangers. So that's a storyline. That's legit. The Rangers' points percentage is still 3rd worst in the Eastern Conference. But who scares you? Over the next, 50 games or whatever, or it's under 50 games now. Who in the Eastern Conference scares you? That's in this, I use the phrase murky middle. That's in the murky middle. There are a bunch of teams like the Rangers, who I call mediocre, flawed teams. And you just clump them together. They may have different issues and different reasons why they're flawed, but they're flawed. Mediocre, murky middle. That's the NHL today. Parity. Because of parity, historic parity, the New York Rangers, as we say, have as good a shot as anybody to earn a berth into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And as EJ pointed out too, he said, oh yeah, and with Igor Shesterkin, you may have an X factor. You may have a better chance than these other teams to do it. Now, let me just say one thing, and I should have had this in my column, and I didn't. Should have included it. Because I make the argument, I'm not making the argument that they are going to make the playoffs, but I'm making the argument that they are going to be in the mix. They are smack dab in the mix because not a lot of great teams are the ones that they're competing with for a playoff spot. Okay. The thing I left out of my article was they were in a similar spot last season. They had the crappy November and December, that 4 and 15 stretch, 19 game stretch, right? That's a quarter of your season in November and December. But when they came out of it, they still had the second half of the season ahead of them. And they weren't way out of a playoff spot. And as the season wore down, 5 weeks left, 4 weeks left, 3 weeks left, even after the trades, ahead of the trade deadline, and some of the other moves they made earlier in the season, Rangers were right there. Because again, the murky middle. And nobody was running away with the playoff spot, right? Maybe out of reach were the teams, sitting atop the divisions. But those wild card spots, they were right there for the Rangers. And the Rangers had Igor Shesterkin then too. They couldn't get it done. They fell flat. Now, I will say that I think they're mentally tougher and they are much, 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 much more engaged game in, game out than they were last season. I don't think there's any debate there. All that locker room mess, all the bullshit with management, angry at Chris Drury, that's done. That's in the past. It's not affecting them on the ice. Credit Mike Sullivan for a lot of this, for getting this right with this group, but credit the players as well. So, I don't see a complete face plant like we saw for 2 months last season that really sabotaged their season and, lack of effort and all that. I don't think that's going to be the case with this group. The question is going to be, can they overcome their serious flaws that, again, I don't think are rooted in effort. It's just at this stage, as guys get older, Mika's not scoring like Mika used to. Artemi Panarin's not scoring like he used to. JT Miller's not scoring like he used to, except in overtime. Alexis Lafreniere's Alexis Lafreniere. I think he is what he is at this point, right? This many years into his career. So there's still upside for guys like Will Cooley, Noah Laba, reason to be excited about them. Gabe Perreault for sure, Scotty Morrow, Braden Schneider, who I think has really stepped up since Adam Fox has been out of the lineup. So there are good things for now and down the road. But again, circle back to the point. As much as we focus on the Rangers, right? And the fans, like my X notifications, people blowing me up. What are you talking about? Rangers are going to, earn a playoff spot, or they're in the mix, or they're a favorite to gain a playoff spot. Obviously, most of these people didn't even read the story. Saying things that I didn't say, but I did say that they are in the mix, and I explained why, and I just explained it before, right? NHL parity, murky middle, a lot of mediocre teams. Whoever finishes in those wild card spots, unless somebody gets smoking hot in the second half, which I don't foresee, it's going to be a mediocre average team making the playoffs. And it could be the Rangers, and it may be somebody else. But who scares you that they're battling for a playoff spot with right now? Seriously. Look at the standings. Look at who's ahead of them. The Islanders, they scare you. I know Sorokin's played great. Matthew Schaefer's on his way to being Rookie of the Year. They've surprisingly, been able to put the puck in the net pretty consistently there. They're a surprising team. But do they scare you? Do you think the Rangers can't finish ahead of them? It's impossible? I don't think so. The Devils have a myriad of issues, a lot of them because of injuries. Jack Hughes' injury has been a crusher for them, but it's not the only one. Now, on paper, I think the Devils should be up there with the Carolina Hurricanes battling for first place, but that's not the case. And based on last year, the injuries and kind of how they collapsed as the season wore on and without Jack Hughes, Devils, they scare you? I'd say no. Flyers, Penguins really dropping right now, but for much of the season, they've been ahead of the Rangers. Do either one of those teams scare you? I don't think so. Those are just the teams in your division. If you're talking wild card, you got to be concerned about teams in the other division, in the Atlantic Division. Who scares you there? The first place team, Detroit Red Wings, have 40 points. I don't know. They're an up-and-coming team, but again, do I think they're head and shoulders better than the Rangers? I could see them falling back out of the top 3 in the Atlantic and then having to fight for a wild card spot. If that's the case, you're the Rangers, so be it. We're flawed, they're flawed. They're a little bit younger. They're up and coming. We're probably more, heading the other way, but we're kind of meeting in the middle. Not afraid of them. If there are 2 teams that would concern me in the second half of the season, in the Eastern Conference, they are not divisional opponents, though. They're both from the Atlantic. 2 teams that would scare me a little bit if I'm the Rangers, or, where I might think, yeah, they're going to be in the playoffs. So there go 2 of the 8 spots in the conference. That would be the Florida Panthers, because the Panthers have, been decimated by injury this year. And yeah, we can talk about, hey, Rangers have had serious injuries too, key guys. We know Miller and Panarin both started the season hurt. Vincent Trocheck, missed, whatever it was, 12, 13 games. Adam Fox has missed an extended stretch here in December. Matt Rempe was out for a couple months. They've had serious injuries to deal with, key guys. But nobody's been decimated like Florida, paying the price for all those long runs to the Stanley Cup final 3 years in a row. Barkov, Kachuk, probably their two most invaluable players, along with Sergei Bobrovsky. But it's not just them, it's the support players. I mean, they've been crushed with injuries, and yet there they are. They're in the murky middle, except with them, they're in the murky middle, but they're also two-time defending Stanley Cup champions. And oh yeah, Matthew Tkachuk is coming back. Oh yeah, we expect Barkov back, maybe before the playoffs even start. That's a team, as they get healthier, that's a team. They've hung around. Yeah, in that murky middle, I'd be stunned if they don't have a strong second half and surge their way into a playoff spot. And the other team in Florida, in the state of Florida, the Rangers got to keep an eye on too, Tampa Bay Lightning. They've had serious injuries as well. They've been able to tread water. I think as we do the podcast right now, they're in the second wild card in the East, but looks like Andrei Vasilevsky's coming back. So you get the big cat, you get your number one goalie, your Stanley Cup winning goalie, get him back. Victor Hedman, Ryan McDonough, Eric Cernak, 3 key defensemen, your 3 top defensemen. They've remained afloat without these guys for a month, right? More than a month. They're all getting healthy. Second half, watch out for them as well. Now, that might be more dangerous for Detroit, the Boston Bruins. Teams that right now are in the top 3 in the Atlantic Division, there are going to be a lot of this. Looking over the shoulder. Oh, here comes that freight train, the Florida Panthers. Oh, here comes Tampa Bay Lightning. Those are teams that, yeah, you'd have some concern about. But who else, right? Ottawa Senators, Columbus Blue Jackets, Penguins, Flyers. I mean, none of these teams. The Rangers, you can make the case for the Rangers finishing ahead of them. All those teams, or most of those teams, or finishing below them like they did last season, when they fell short. That's what it is to be a flawed, mediocre team. The Rangers are that. The Flyers are that. The Penguins are that. The Senators are that. I'd argue, the Boston Bruins, who've played so much better than expected this season, they're going to be in that mix as well. So, in any case, I think a lot of people missed the point. They jumped all over me. No, man, the Rangers were done this year. We stink. We suck. I get it. And I get your frustration, but don't be so myopic. Don't be just focusing on your team. See what's around you, right? Watch other hockey games, watch other hockey teams, and you'll see, oh, they're okay. They're not great. Or, boy, they can't keep the puck out of their own net. Or their power play and special teams are killing them. Or they're like us. They don't score. Right? A lot of teams, they're right here. And listen, an injury to this player or that player for or against the Rangers, could swing how these things go in the second half of the season. But my point remains, they will be in the hunt, I think, the rest of the way. I don't see a faceplant, nor do I see, the Rangers just won 8 out of 10 games. I don't see that either. I think it's going to be a grind. And again, like EJ Raddick said, having Mike Sullivan be your guiding force behind the bench is a good place to start, compared to a lot of those other teams. So leave it at that. One more segment to come. We'll take a quick look at the week ahead heading into the holiday break. This is the Rink Wrap Podcast at Forever Blueshirts. Welcome back to Rink Wrap at Forever Blueshirts. I'm Jim Cerny, just wrapping things up here and kind of turning back again, talking about that murky middle of the Eastern Conference. Just one final thought on that. Right now, the team that sits atop the wild card spot has 40 points, which is just one fewer than the first place team in the Atlantic Division, and equal to the second and third place teams in the Atlantic Division. Just giving you a frame reference of how tight this conference is. So the top wild card team has 40 points as of today, Friday, December 19th. The team that sits last in the Eastern Conference are the Buffalo Sabres. They have 34 points. 34. That is your last place team in the conference. Nobody's out of this thing. Nobody. Now, as Alain Vigneault would say, as a betting, if I were a betting man, so if I was a betting man, would I put my money on the Buffalo Sabres or Columbus Blue Jackets right now, the bottom two teams in the East? No, I wouldn't. Even though they have games in hand and the Rangers and some of the teams ahead of them, I just don't think they're really good teams. Certainly not Buffalo. But who knows? Maybe the GM change, maybe that lights a fire under the Buffalo Sabres. We'll see. Maybe it gives them a spark. Maybe they go on a run. I just don't see it. But bottom line is, I could be dead wrong because they're in the murky middle. They may be at the bottom of the murky middle, but they're still in that group. 34 points. Talk about the Rangers right there. Rangers have 38 points. They're all right there. So, in any case, that was just final thought on the Eastern Conference. Looking ahead, that's a big game. Saturday afternoon matinee, Madison Square Garden. I know the Rangers, are struggling like hell to score on their score and win on home ice. Boy, they got to reverse that trend Saturday. You got the Flyers head to head. These games, if you read my game previews ever, and I hope you do at foreverblueshirts.com, point out all the time when they play Ottawa, the two times they played Detroit, they're games against head-to-head opponents against these murky middle teams, these fellow mediocre teams within your conference. These are huge games, huge points that you got to get. And if you can get them in regulation, the better, all the better, because the swing is too important. So the Flyers have been a surprise team this year, dealt a massive blow now that Tyson Forster is lost for the season. It's really, really for a team that's still coming together and is not the deepest team. It's a team that's got some good young, higher end players. And then there's a pretty big fall off. So to lose one of your best forwards, that's certainly not ideal. With still half the season to play. Anyway, you get to Saturday at the Garden. First time these teams are playing against each other this season. This is a game the Rangers need to win. We talk about murky middle and it's going to be a dogfight and every game's a grind. Doesn't matter how you do it. You don't need style points. You proved that in St. Louis for sure, right? Doesn't have to be a Picasso. Again, another one of Alain Vigneault's lines. Doesn't have to be a Picasso. But win this thing. Those games against those teams that you're going to be fighting with the rest of the season for a playoff berth or to be in playoff contention, they're crucial. That's a crucial game. Again, I know we're December, it's December hockey, but this isn't March. But these points count. You play the Flyers, that's a massive 2 points, 4-point swing if you get those 2 points in regulation. Massive head-to-head game for the Rangers Saturday. And then, listen, you got to beat teams that it feels like you should beat. Like, they should have beaten the Vancouver Canucks. Like, those were 2 points you got to get. You got to get against teams like that. I felt the same way against the St. Louis Blues. It wasn't easy. It was a slog, in fact. But the Rangers did get those 2 points. Same holds true on Sunday when they go on the road. They go to Nashville and they play the Predators. It's not a good team. It hadn't been a good team for a couple years now. I know Steven Stamkos is breaking out a little bit, had the 4-point or a 4-goal game, whenever it was a week ago. Okay. Rangers have the most road wins in the NHL. Take it. You got to take it to the Nashville Predators. That's a team. You got to win that game. So it's a big weekend for the New York Rangers. And then they conclude their 7 games in 11 days. That's a brutal stretch. They concluded on Tuesday when they take on the Washington Capitals. Again, that's a tougher opponent now, but it's a divisional opponent that's not that far ahead of you, that's had a little bit of a struggle recently. Now that's another big game. And then you go into the holiday break. Hopefully you feel good about things, about how you finished up this 7-11 stretch. Hopefully you're getting Adam Fox back either right before the break or right afterwards. And then, boom, hit the ground running. You got the Islanders, you got Washington again, then Carolina's in that mix. And then the Winter Classic down in Miami, outdoors at Lone Depot Park. So against the Panthers. So there you go. That sets you up. That's where we are. It should be a really, really intriguing weekend with the Rangers. You just never know, though. Like, I get the impression, like, you play the Colorado Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights, and I know the Rangers aren't as good as those teams, but boy, do they play better against them than they do against, I don't know, the St. Louis Blues, the Vancouver Canucks, and, maybe the Nashville Predators. We'll find out this weekend. Seems like the best teams bring out the best in the Rangers. Well, they got to find a way to stomp on the teams that are in the murky middle with them or even below them in the standings. So that's where we're at. Thanks for tuning into the Rink Rap Podcast this week. And happy Hanukkah for those celebrating right now. And Merry Christmas to everybody up ahead, looking ahead. And we'll join you hopefully later next week, if not the beginning of the following week, as we get you set for more New York Rangers hockey. All things New York Rangers right here on the Rink Rap Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe. And also, please make sure to visit our website, foreverblueshirts.com. Cheers. Happy holidays.